Hey, what's up, guys? So today is our the last roast we're going to do in this building. Last live stream probably as well. You guys know I've been here in this shop for well over 2 years now. Every hive that anybody's ever gotten has been made right here in this shop, and we're moving to a new location, and it's going to be awesome. I'm going from 276 square feet to over 500. Or about 500, and that's going to be huge for me because I really don't have any space in here. It's kind of a nightmare. But anyhow, so for the last few days I've been building inventory, trying to get some roasters built up so when I go to move, I'm not having to scramble to get these machines running again because it's kind of a nightmare. I've got almost 20,000 pounds of equipment in here. So anyhow, enough of that. Today what we're going to roast is some organic Ramirez Estate pea berries from Dominican Republic. I've done, this is from Cafe Kreyol, one of my distributors. I've done 2 roasts of this. The first roast was good. I'll just give it a good. I wouldn't give it a great. The second roast was really bad, and it was my own fault. I was really trying to push the envelope with it, and it came out just kind of green to the point where I actually threw some of it away, and I don't typically throw any coffee away. So my end temp on the last one was 204 for reference, and had probably, I don't know, 25% development, but I just didn't have the heat it needed. It needed just a little bit more heat. Pea berries are dense. You know, as far as what's different with a pea berry as opposed to another kind of bean, that's the main thing for me, is that, you know, in a small space you're going to fit more just simply because they're a smaller bean. I'm weighing cans to see which one I'm going to use. I'm running these butane, cans, and they don't last as long as I'd like. One of the cool things about my new shop is that I got a gas line in the shop, so I'm going to be able to hook up to a regular stove. I've got a nice vintage stove at home I'm going to put there in the shop. So I'm going to have almost like a little kitchen. We'll call it a test kitchen. Will feel so official. So we're starting out 76 degrees. We are roasting, I think it's 158 grams if I remember right. I just weighed this. Yeah, 158. And we'll see how it goes. And when I was saying I didn't like this coffee, it has nothing to do with the coffee itself. Everything that I've ever gotten from, what do we call it? Cafe Kreyol has been great. Really, really good coffee from them. Really high quality. It's just I didn't roast it very well. I didn't do a good job. And part of it is that it was a big accomplishment to, moving is a nightmare in general, and being able to get a place. It's taken a lot of brain power, and I just really wasn't into what I was doing, which was trying to roast coffee. So we're going to start out around medium on this thing. We're starting out 76 degrees, and we're roasting. So for the first minute, it's a little slower than the second minute, and then they kind of decrease. The reason being is the first minute you've got a cold roaster, and I'm bringing that up to temperature. I could preheat the roaster if I wanted to. I just burn my fingers if I do, so that's why I don't personally. I also look at it. There's not a lot of material in a roaster, in these roasters, and they're as lightweight as I can build them, and so the metal itself heats up very, very quickly, a lot faster than the beans. And so I've done side-by-side testing with roasts to see if preheating helps, and I haven't really been able to see the value in it. So I just don't do it. What did I say we started out? We started at 76 degrees, and I'm at 110. 1 minute, I'm at 113 degrees. So I've gained like 30 some degrees first minute. So that means that my second minute I'll likely gain 40 or more. And then it's going to drop off from there. And if that's where I'm at, I probably won't adjust the heat until I go to develop. But since I got you guys here, I really want to thank everybody for their support. If you guys weren't buying roasters from me, I wouldn't be here today, obviously. Well, I am stubborn, but No, I wouldn't be, because I'm not going to beat a dead horse, obviously. And if these things didn't sell as well as they do, then I wouldn't think I had a good product. And they sell well, and I have a good product, so I'm going to continue on doing this as long as I can. So I usually take the first 2 minutes and average them, and that gives me a more accurate idea of where I'm going to be, my initial rate of rise. And it looks like I'm going to be right at about 90 degrees over the first 2 minutes. Yeah, okay. So I'm at 92 degrees over the first 2 minutes. So basically we're at like 45 degrees a minute over the first two. And I'm just going to keep on with this speed. I kind of like it. My goal here is I'm hoping to hit, end of dry or yellow, whatever you want to call it, at about 6 minutes, 300 degrees right in there. You guys can't see, but I'm using a digital dome when I'm doing it. Right there. And, as far as like whether or not you need a digital dome or you need a data dome or you need any kind of thermocouple, it makes it easier for sure. But it's not at all necessary to be able to roast really good coffee. I've roasted, the majority of the coffee I've roasted without a thermocouple. And part of it is I enjoy the process more. This isn't as bad. The digital dome's fine. When you get into the data dome and you've got it connected to a computer, it's a lot to keep track of all at once. And so I don't find it as enjoyable. Whereas when you roast just with the roaster, you're totally dialed into the smell of everything. And so those are all your cues, right? The only way you know what's happening is what you're seeing and what you're smelling. And as a result, you learn to roast really, really well, really fast, which is pretty cool. I really like that. Because obviously kind of the point of this is we're here to learn to roast coffee, The skills you learn with the Hive are totally transferable to a big roaster. It's not really the same as with other home roasting devices. Most home roasting devices, you basically are just picking a preset of some sort and deciding, well, I'm gonna put the fan on high or low, and that'll be about it. This is true roasting. I mean, you're in charge. You got to figure out absolutely everything that's happening with this roast and decide what to do next. Decide how to solve the problems that you may see coming up. So like, okay, I'm at four minutes and I'm at 285 degrees. So I said my target was 300 degrees in 6 minutes, and I'm obviously going to exceed that. I'm going to hit 300 degrees in about 4.5 minutes. So do I want to compensate? Do I want to slow it down? I can. Because I wound up with these pea berries so underdeveloped the last time, I'm going to really make sure I don't do that again. And so I probably am going to slow it down just a little bit here. About now. And as far as slowing down the roast, you got a few options. What I did is I just turned the heat down. That's kind of the most obvious solution. But the other thing you can do is, the base of the roaster. Let me grab one to show you guys. So here's the base of the roaster, and it's got this hole in the center of it. And the heat from your flame goes right up inside that hole. And so it heats up the inside of the roaster very, very quickly. So the more heat you direct into that hole, the faster your roast is going to be. And so if you try to stay away from the hole with your flame, like put the flame here on the edge, you can really slow down your process. And there's a real big advantage to doing that because it allows you to, just kind of drop some heat and drop some speed without really making a bunch of adjustments. And so I find it a really easy thing to do. The stoves are touchy in general, and the cheaper that you get, probably the worse they are, I guess. We have a pretty nice home stove, I think. The Samsung or other brand. But anyways, it's a stove. And the hob, so you goes in England. And when I turn it from, high to medium to low, I really see 3 settings on the flame. Like they jump, they go big, medium, small, right? There's no like Mr. In between, and that's really what I'm always looking for when I'm roasting is that in between point. And I just don't see it a lot of times. Same thing with this camping stove. Like this is your standard, $23 on Amazon or that Big 5 or whatever butane camping stove, and it's okay. I mean, it's controllable, but it's not as controllable as I would like. There's no needle valve, you know what I mean? if you understand what I'm talking about there. And so you look for other ways to dump the heat. Now, something that's a little counterintuitive is a lot of people think, oh, I'll just come up off the heat in order to get rid of some heat, right? Because you're further away from the heat source, so therefore it should be cooler. The issue with that is that you wind up actually shoving a ton of air inside the roaster, and you concentrate the heat a little bit. So like, think about how a candle flame looks, right? The top of that candle flame, it comes to a point. And so, right next to the flame, it's not very hot, but you put your finger right over the top of that thing, and it's going to be very, very hot. Got an early pop on this thing. I'm going to really need to slow it down now. And so anyway, so if you raise up off the flame in an attempt to slow your process down, you may actually heat it up. Also, the gas burns at different temperatures depending on where it's at. Typically, the further away from the emitter, the hotter it is to a certain point, and then obviously it drops off. Yeah, this thing's already starting to pop on me, and it's only at, well, I'm showing 375, which is early. So now I'm doing everything I can to really slow this thing down without just dropping the heat completely off. And so kind of what I'm doing is I'm developing a little bit early. I'm slowing the process down before I'm actually into the real pop, which should happen in about another 10 degrees. I'm at 8 minutes. I'm at 380 degrees Fahrenheit. So anyway, so what I'm saying is, be careful of just raising it up high off the flame to try to slow it down, because you may actually speed it up considerably without even really needing to. So now I'm at a good metric. So I'm at 8.5 minutes, and I'm at 383 degrees, which is really optimum for me, because that's about when I want to slow down the process a lot. So now I want to basically go another 4.5 minutes, and I only want to gain as little temperature as possible. I'm hoping to stay say 415 or below. And so I'm trying to extend out the period when the pop happens, because that's how you develop, and that's how you get the good flavor. What you're doing is you're caramelizing the sugar, so you're trying to put a low heat into that time, Coffee does smell good while it's roasting. It's funny, that roast I was talking about that I wound up doing under develop, didn't taste good, but man, it smells so good. And it's kind of funny, underdeveloped coffee, a lot of times it has a really, really good smell to it. You can just barely smell the green to it, but it's like this really faint, but the sugar on it is so strong, because you haven't burned any of it off yet, because your end temp is so low. So I'm still doing what I was saying. So you can see I'm moving around in this pattern around the flame. And I'm doing that because I'm trying to avoid putting any more heat into the roaster than I need to. I'm at 10 minutes. I'm at 396. The analogy I like to use, there's two things. One, it's like when you see all this smoke that's coming off, it's because I'm hardly roasting I'm hardly using the flame at all. And so as a result, it's smoking a lot, whereas I put it over the flame and it pretty much stops. But anyways, my analogy that I like to use, two of them, is one when you caramelize onions, if you've ever done that. It's a real long process if you do it right. It takes about as long for me to do it as when I'm roasting coffee. And the idea is that you're trying to get the onions to the point where they kind of turn clear, and at that point they've changed their state, and the starch is turned into sugar, and now you can caramelize it. And it's the same thing with coffee. When you get coffee to a certain point, you can caramelize it, but before then you can't. Or you can, but you'll burn it off later in the roast, and so you're trying to caramelize right at the very end, in other words. And the other analogy I like to use is you read on a lot of recipes, is they bring it to a boil and then simmer. It's really what I'm doing here. I'm bringing the temperature up pretty quick, up to the point where it starts to pop, and then I'm just trying to drop as much heat as I can. And, I want to keep a positive rate of rise, but I want it to be very, very slow. So I'm at 11 and a half minutes. I'm at 407 degrees. My rate of rise is probably 5 degrees a minute right now, something like that. That's part of the other reason I kind of like to roast without the artisan is the artisan calculates your rate of rise for you, and it does it based on a computer algorithm. It looks back in time and it adds it up and divides by the minute. So it'll say, okay, you've been roasting for 3 minutes and you've gained 10 degrees, so therefore your rate of rise is 3 minutes or 3 degrees a minute. The problem with that is that I could have roasted, at no rate of rise for 2.5 minutes and gained the 10 degrees in the last minute. And so I find it really hard I don't accept it often as being like the end all be all kind of, and I find it distracting. Oh no, I don't have a sieve. Oh well. We're going to get creative on the cooling today. I'm just going to have to put it in the pan. I don't know, I put my sieve. No, it doesn't matter. That's the problem with trying to move, So I'm at 12:42. I'm at 4:17. My target was 13 minutes and 415 degrees. I'm going to run a little bit over. And I'm just going to go ahead and run out the clock on this one to 13 minutes rather than, and I'll be at 420. And there we go. There's 13 minutes, 420 degrees. Oh, these look great. Okay. So now I got to figure out a way to cool these off. It's funny, I've got a giant roll of screen in here too, like I should be able to just rig something up real quick, but we're just going to stick them on the floor in front of a fan. Yeah, as far as cooling goes, like how long to take to cool or, how important, there's my screen. I didn't know I had it. As far as like how long to do it for, how fast, I say as fast as you possibly can. And the reason for that is that the beans are still heating right now and they're still roasting. Even though they're off the roaster, they're still, each bean is still giving the other bean, some heat. And here we go. That's better. And it's just like when you're cooking anything, like, if you're cooking a piece of fish or chicken or vegetables. Vegetables are a real hard one in my opinion to get exactly right, especially if it's got a lot of water in it. So like, say you're doing zucchini or something like that on the stove. By the time you think it's done, it is. Then you get it onto the plate, and now it's mush because you basically allowed it to continue heating. So you have to try to predict that. And it's the same thing when you're roasting. You need to get that heat off the beans just as quick as you possibly can. One of my things that I hope to be able to come out with here in the future, near future, is a cooling tray of some sort for us to use. Something that kind of, matches the Hive and goes along with that. Maybe something manual, maybe something electric. Maybe we'll hook it up to a vacuum cleaner. I don't really know, but I think it's a good next product, But for right now, I've got a big challenge ahead of me, which is to get all this stuff out of here. But anyways, I just wanted to roast one last time here before I pull the plug, so to speak, and shut everything down. My schedule is I've got a ton of roasters that I'm building right now, trying to catch up on some orders, plus get stuff, for when I'm down at the new shop. But I'm basically on Friday, I'm going to unplug everything and get it on pallets. So this weekend is going to be palletizing all my equipment. Then Monday I'm getting a truck and what's called a scissor lift trailer, and what that does is it's got like it drops all the way down to the ground and it picks your load up flat, so you can put like this beast here. This thing is my heaviest, well, it's not the heaviest, it's the most awkward. It's so bulky machine to move. It's about 2,600 pounds. My press is another almost 4,000 pounds, and they're not bad. They're just, you know, it's obviously heavier than I can move by hand. And so my son's going to come help me shove stuff around on the pallet jack. But anyhow, that's my schedule. And probably the next time we do a roast together, it's going to be from the new location. As you can imagine, I'll be roasting in there just as soon as I can. I almost did a roast the other day when I was in there, but it's killer. And the thing that's neat about it too is it's in a like, I'm in a business park right now, and it's basically purely industrial. So there's a stainless steel tank manufacturer in the back. There's another outfit that does insulation for housing, and then there's this company called Fairweather that just moved into the entire place, which is why I have to move. And they make like super high-end mobile homes, and they have another name for it. It's not mobile home, but it is, you know, modular. There we go, modular homes. So basically, they're like high-end prefab, you know, come in sections and stack them up or whatever. What's up, Joseph? And so, anyways, that's what's here. The new place is it's basically like an old cannery. It is an old cannery, an old apple cannery, and they've retrofitted all the buildings to be like little shops, restaurants, breweries, coffee shops, and Hive Factory, which is awesome. So I'm going to be inside of an old apple cooling room. It appears, I'm not sure, but it looks like a cold storage room for when the apple industry was big. So here in Sonoma County, apples were really big. After Prohibition, you know, basically we grew hops here for a long time, and then prunes, and then grapes, and then Prohibition hit, and they tore out all the grapes and they planted apples because they couldn't sell the wine. And then, you know, back in the last, I don't know, 30 years, 20 years, something like that, pretty much all the apple trees have been mowed down, and it's all grapes here, which, you know, whatever. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't really think monoculture is the best thing, but it is what it is. But anyways, point is, the building I'm moving into is fully insulated and nice and cool. Whereas this room here is just completely, it's like an inferno all summer long. I'm in basically like a very small metal building, and the sun's on it, you know, all day, every day. And I've got skylights, so it's just baking hot in here all the time, or freezing cold, take your pick. But anyhow, the new place is gonna be a lot nicer. I've got the 3-phase power I need. I've got I got running water. I'm pretty excited about it. But mainly, it's their logo is made here, right? Meaning like everything that is sold in the Barlow is pretty much made at the Barlow, or at least in Sonoma County. And that's why the owner of the Barlow was pretty excited to get me in there, because he realized that, you know, I'm one of the few people that actually manufacture something myself. I'm not outsourcing anything, you know. So he's being real supportive, gave me a good rate on rent, made it real easy for me to move in. And now the challenge is just picking up all this heavy stuff. And Joseph's going to come over and help me move, since he works out all the time. He's nice and strong. Right? Or are you too far? Manila to here? You can do it, brother. Anyhow, you guys have a good day, and you probably won't see me for a little bit, but next time you do, it's going to be in the glory of the Barlow in Sebastopol, California. Oh, and I have a patio, which is super awesome. Like, the patio is like, basically, I'm sharing a big building. It's a 5,000, I know, I wish you could too, brother. It's a 5,000 foot square foot building, and they're putting me in the corner, right? So I got a 500 square foot area, and I've got a big door, and it goes out in a little enclosed patio. So like, really, I could have my dog there, it looks like, and he couldn't get out, you know. Not like he's real motivated these days, but anyways, it's pretty darn cool. So it's gonna be nice to be able to open up a door. That's one of the things about here, is that I've got a roll-up door right here. But if I, hey, thank you. But when I open it up, I like face out in a parking lot, and everybody that drives by like shakes their head and like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyhow, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you on the flip side.